So let me introduce, we've got Greg Driven here. Greg's with Startup Marketing Team. He really loves ramen noodles, according to his bio. I'm going to let him do a little bit more of an intro on himself. And then Colin over here from Teradata Interactive, who's been in the digital space for a while. And I believe he's a big rugby fan. So if anybody likes ramen or rugby, these are your guys. So all you, I'll pass this out if folks have questions.
Thank you for that rich introduction. Okay, I'm kidding. Okay, so it's, kind of late, second day after lunch, so we're going to try to keep this lively, and we're going to try to move at a pretty quick pace, introduce a lot of concepts, and then get into discussion, okay? So my name is Greg Driven, and I wanted to start out I've been in the marketing profession for almost 30 years, and about 90% of it in the K-12 space, pre-K-12 space. So this is, a picture right before I started. I was very, wide-eyed and ready to tackle it. And then, I sort of started working, and some of my jobs felt like this a little bit. But over the span of the last 20-something years, I've either worked for or consulted with a lot of different companies in the space. More recently, I got involved working for not-for-profits and startups, so that was kind of interesting to start with. And then my shameless plug is, which I'll be very brief, is a company I started about a year ago. It's called Startup Marketing Team. Probably the most literal name for a company you could ever, come up with. But I basically help startups and sort of scrappy entrepreneurial groups within larger companies. I work with a sort of a virtual team of freelancers and specialists, whether they be SEO people or content specialists or measurement professionals, and then sort of assemble a stealth small team to help those startup groups ramp up quickly, hopefully so they can raise money and then hire me for bigger and better things. Okay, so having been in this industry for a while, there are certain questions that I ask myself daily, and also when I wake up, at 3 in the morning, thinking about what I need to do. Why in an organization does everyone seem to have an opinion about marketing? The CFO wants to get involved in, the fonts and the colors of the brochure and the website, and this doesn't always happen, I'm not involved in the IT or even product management. So that's one question. Whether the business is booming or we're struggling, why is it that my budget always seems to be shrinking? Another one is, just when I'm about to fantasize about a summer vacation, could it possibly be back to school season yet again? And then, most relevant to this session is, what do I need to do to measure my campaigns effectively so that they'll be successful, and hopefully I'll be able to then keep my job, right? So those are my big questions. For the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the most common mistakes that I've either made or I've identified. And then I'm going to talk about some lessons learned along the way. And then I'm going to hand it over to my friend here, who's going to probably go a little bit deeper, talking about some of his experiences. Okay. Cute kid, right? Very cute. Marketing people, you always got to put babies and cute animals in, right?
Cats.
Cats. Yeah, I don't have any cats in this presentation. Okay. So first mistake. Some of these are common sense, but I think they're all important for different reasons. We as marketing people, we tend to be very nice people. We want to build consensus. We want to make everyone happy. I think when it comes to measuring the effectiveness of campaigns, however, this can work against us. I think we need to leverage the fact that we are the smartest people in the room. We know what we're doing. We need to manage expectations about campaigns, and we need to educate our colleagues within our organizations. Okay, the next one. This has been actually talked about various sessions, so I'll be quick. But this is important. No matter how good you are at measurement, no matter how many tools you have in place or resources, I just think you're dead in the water if you don't make your content fresh and interesting. So some things I've heard in the 2 days I've been here, I'll try to add a couple of nuances. But, you got to treat teachers and administrators like real people who have real problems. They actually like to laugh. They like to be inspired. They like to have information personalized for them. I mean, in the day of personalized instruction, personalized learning, there's no reason anymore, in my opinion, that you should go create, expensive 4-color brochures and email marketing and send it all out. Like, everything should be pretty personalized so that when you're talking to a district administrator, you're speaking his or her language. A couple other things on this, because I'll forget if I don't mention it. I really feel like it's important to humanize your marketing efforts, your blogs. Bring on teachers as brand ambassadors. Run your content through them. Get them involved in actually writing to make it more fresh and engaging. Okay. Okay, this is obvious, but these are things that I've seen a lot in terms of goals. You've got to make them realistic. Okay, show of hands. How many people who implement campaigns have other people dictate what those goals are or should? Okay, I'm going to raise my hand on that one. So many times our goals are, they're dictated because our business is suffering a little bit, or maybe we set these goals a year prior when we did the budget. But I just sort of urge you all to use very, if you're working on brand awareness campaigns, make sure those goals are realistic based on what you're trying to do. Not every video is going to go viral. You're not going to get hundreds of likes. Just be realistic about it. Okay. When I actually was looking at this morning, I thought, okay, most common mistakes, drinking in the office, right? No, that's not what I meant. I think really important, especially in this industry, I think we forget about how important brand awareness is as part of the overall mix. So what I mean by that is I think that traditionally it's been very hard to measure. I think it has sort of a kind of a fluffy, there's like a fluffy brand awareness goal, and therefore it can be devalued by senior execs and colleagues. But it's such a critical part of the overall mix. So, when we talk about attribution models, you're going to want to make sure you put weight against some of the brand awareness vehicles that you have running. Okay, measuring the wrong data. So, what I've seen here is make sure, like, even if you have a fancy dashboard that comes with some platform you run, or your finance team has helped you put a great dashboard together, don't try to measure everything under the sun. Also, what I see a lot, especially with sort of more junior people, is not looking at the data that's just simple to identify, like traffic on your website, CPA, or likes and followers in social. Make sure your goals your data that you're measuring is very much attuned to what your goal is, and that's pretty obvious. So I'll keep going. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly talk about lessons learned. I'm not going to sing from the Sound of Music. All right, so first one is make sure before you rush into your creative work, that you start with a plan and that you have key performance indicators that are aligned to what that plan is. Next one. So make sure, I'll just read for those in the back, I can't see it, make sure the right measurement infrastructure is in place. So by this I mean there are incredible tools on the market. I'm sure there'll be some questions about these when we get to the Q&A. Google Analytics it's a no-brainer, but I have found that if you actually put someone on your team, like make them the data geek who owns Google Analytics. I've learned more about Google Analytics the deeper I go in terms of customizing reports. And when I had my old job, working with Christina at Pearson, I didn't know anything really about it because someone, 3 departments away was involved with it. Other tools, I love MailChimp. It's so easy to use. You can measure everything in terms of your e-marketing campaigns. I think HubSpot. How many of you use HubSpot here? Okay, I think that's a great tool. Marketo is something that's not. It's a great lead automation tool. It's not a lot of people in this industry use it, but can really help you look at sort of everything that's going on from your top funnel down. And I think it's an incredible lead management tool. Another one that actually 2 weeks ago I received my first demo on is called Mintigo. Does anyone know that or anyone heard of that one? Okay, I didn't think so because I just heard about it 2 weeks ago. It's a predictive analytics platform that uses data and statistics to help you get to know your customers better, their trends, their purchasing behavior, where they go, so you can really truly determine your qualified leads. A few other quick points about infrastructure. It's not just tools. I think interns can be unbelievably helpful, especially if you hire some people who love data or they're great with statistics or they're going to go get their MBA. And also agency partners and even like the idea of if there's no one on your team who can really own measurement, there's some incredible freelance database marketers out there. You can bring them on just for a couple, 2 or 3 projects a year. And I've had some good success with that as well. Okay, the next 2 slides go together. I think they really start to get at what Colin's going to talk about too, which is in terms of really good attribution, you need to look at your full customer experience. How many people question here. When you are measuring your campaigns, how many times are you looking at just the final vehicle that gets them, gets them to convert? How many focus on that? How many of you focus on like the first and the last touch that they have? Okay, a few. Okay, so does everyone else in the room measure every single customer touch point? Because it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. I think common wisdom is it's like 5 to 7 touches from sort of cold lead to conversion. So there's a lot of data that needs to be analyzed. I think you need the tools and the resources to be able to do it effectively. Okay, and then another cute baby. I have to look at the babies for a second. All right. So setting up the right attribution model, there's a lot of different kinds, but basically what this means is making sure you have the right algorithm, the right model you work on with your finance team probably, where you're assigning weight to all the different touches that are part of the customer experience. Not forgetting about the early brand awareness vehicles, not forgetting about the sort of both online, offline vehicles, making sure that you're really looking at every single thing, including mobile, which actually requires its own sort of logic as part of your model. I think Colin's going to talk about this, so I'll just make an obvious point, which is to be a really successful digital marketer these days, if you do not do a great job of building your top funnel, you are in deep doo-doo down the line. And so when it comes to top funnel, I recommend that, or what works for me is test a lot of different things and spend a little bit of money on all of them. Test different vehicles, test different messages, test different headlines, just look at everything, and then when you see what's working, double down, triple down, spend more money on it, build your top funnel, and then sort of nurture along the way. That's a really broad oversimplification, but it's what I recommend in terms of the approach. Okay, and before I sort of turn it over, the last thing is really hokey, which is, I don't know about you, for me, there definitely have been some tough days as a marketing professional. It's like you put all this effort into a campaign, it bombs, it doesn't do well, you feel lousy. Sometimes you get beat up a bit, even. And I think it's important to remember, for me, why I got into it in the first place. I love being creative. I love solving problems. I think it's a really cool thing that you can just, even when you mess up, you can test, you can refine, you can learn from it. And today, there are so many tools that you can actually measure everything. So for me, that's really fun. Okay, so thank you.
Thanks, great job.
Thanks.
So I thought it maybe would make sense to pause for questions, because I know once Colin gets in, people might have a question on their mind. So any questions for Greg at the moment? And also I wanted to ask if you had a comment or kind of an answer to the question we had about, the buying and the decision.
The attribution question.
Yeah.
Well, let anyone's got questions first.
Yeah. Any questions related to what Greg just covered? If not, I've got one, which, as sort of as a marketer and a lot in my role at MDR, dealing with a lot of our customers, questions about measuring goals is, to just give a real-life example of, let's say, a lead gen program. What goals should people really be looking at? Because like you said, there's a lot of metrics that are out there, and I have a feeling people try to look at too many things and aren't really assigning, value to maybe the top 2 or 3 important metrics or KPIs. Do you have any kind of, if you're going to start somewhere, for branding or lead gen, what would you look at?
Return on your advertising spend is the key. So look at all the different vehicles that, break down your different marketing or advertising categories and just do a simple computation to see the return on investment for each one. So to me, that's a no-brainer on that one.
Great. Okay, thanks. Take it away, Colin.
So, thank you.
Oh. No. I'm just kidding. Yes.
Absolutely.
This will all be available.
Okay.
And if you have any trouble, if you want these cute babies and stuff, and you can't get access, just send me an email. My information is in the agenda. Okay, I know.
The epic baby. Right, so I'm not nearly as good a communicator as these two, so I do have crib sheets, so bear with me. So when I come from a family of educators, but I've been in digital marketing, and my mother-in-law is actually a head of school and was on the board of the Independent Heads School Association. So when I said to her, hey, I'm going to be speaking at EdNet, her comment was, well, that's interesting. And anyone who knows mothers-in-law, you never quite know what that means. So I'm going to try and live up to that and make it interesting. My background is I am in digital marketing. I've been doing it close to 20 years. So showing my age, I started when we called it new media, and we had fixed banners and we stuck them on top of web pages, and you'd buy 10,000 page loads and it would take a month. So because this big internet thing on dial-up. So I'm going to talk really from my experience, again, a little bit of a quant jock background about what I think you should measure. What digital marketing is successful? Again, when you're asked how to do it and what to do, how do you communicate that? So from my experience, I boiled it down to there is one thing to measure. Just make it simple, measure one thing. Cost per student enrollment. There are contributing factors to that. There are things that flow into that, but we just need to make it very, very clear, very straightforward. There are 5 things, in my view, that tier into that, but what this allows you to do, it takes it away from, and remember my background, I'm a quant jock. I do attribution models for companies like Procter & Gamble, Cigna. I run marketing programs for Bank of America, companies like that. So it gets you away from the binary event. It gets you back to the student. It takes you back to what is happening with them, how are they doing? And that's the most important thing, I think. Get away from that binary event. But what this does, it captures the whole business. It brings it all together. It's not just the marketing, but it talks about your enrollment programs. It talks about your interaction. It talks about your service. It brings it together into a single, very translatable point of reference. Now, there are things that feed into it. So when measuring those, the absolute key factor for it, in my mind, again, my opinion, based on my experience, discount it, absolutely, is brand. That's where you start. That's where you talk about what you do, how you do it. It's tough because it's sometimes harder to measure. We'll talk about attribution in a moment. It is a buzzword. As with digital marketing, we love to come up with buzzwords. We also love to come up with acronyms. It's kind of a defensive mechanism because digital marketing is really not that complicated. It's really not. If we can come up with lots of buzzwords and lots of acronyms, we can scare people off and keep our jobs. But again, talk about your brand. I mean, get away from as well. We see a lot of schools, a lot of institutions feel their brand is their academic results. It's not. It's so much more than that. It's so much richer than that. Greg talked about bringing the people in your school forward, bringing their personalities, bringing the richness through in your communication. That is critical. So that's where you start. Think about that. Never lose sight of that. Everything else behind it is binary. It's yes, no, click, no clicks, ones and zeros. But this will drive it. Then you've got your basic events. Hey, I did some ads. I did a campaign. I launched some Google AdWords, some PPC, some SEO, and you can fill in the whole list. That's where you start tracking stuff. And that's where things like Google Analytics come in. My word of advice here is most of the tools to measure this are free. If you are paying for a tool to measure this, think about it. Because you can probably do it as well, if not better, at no charge. Leads. And this is where you start to look at things like niche.com, greatschools.org. How are they funneling stuff through me? If I've got lead gen programs, if I've got click-throughs, what are they doing? And again, these are all binary measures. Yes, no, happened, not happened. And if you factor them all down, you'll have that cascade. You'll have those 5 layers, and you have an event at the end. So it's very, very simple. It will give you all your touch points, all your views, and honestly, you'll just get a spreadsheet. You won't even have to do a pivot table. Probably actually get a piece of software to punch it out for you. This is the one that people sometimes forget. We've reached out. We've put ourselves in front of the right people, in front of the parents, the people who do the research, the search, the inquirers, the enrollers. We've sort of touched all those people, and we now have a contact. Well, how much work do they have to do? How many touch points do they have to have? What do they request? You've got the high responder, low enroller audience. Nightmare. Big cost, no outcomes. So have a look at this. Look at your rates. Look at developing a contact score. And that's a personal thing, a contact score. People will throw you massive algorithms and expensive opportunities. It's for you, it's for your program, it's your contact score. Do I really want to deal with this person? It's actually a fair question sometimes. Sometimes you don't. Be honest. Got a lot to do, it's a busy world. And the last one, again, look at the enrollment rate. Look at the dropout rate. If it's important to you, start to look at mixes like domestic students, international students, out-of-area students, in-area students. That's where you factor this in. So, in my mind, I'd build a cascade, these 5 things. It's quite simple. What it will also allow you to do, you've got to remember when you're out there in the digital world, marketing, advertising stuff, you're competing against businesses, be they in the education world, some of the for-profits, private institutions, but also businesses. I mean, honestly, you're going to be competing against people like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime for these people's mind share when they're online. So you will never compete against those brands. If you go down the SEM or the PPC or the performance marketing route by itself, you will spend money every single day and wonder why Is anyone here from Mathnasium or Sylvan or anywhere like that? Cool, I can say stuff then. They will outcompete you. They will just spend money. You will never get a share of voice. So this is why you have to go back to your brand. You have to go back to, what do I do? Why do people want to talk to me? Because if you go down that keyword SEO, SEM, pay for performance each and every day. I need to get 5,000 people to look at me this week. I need to get 100 people to look at me in the next 2 days. You will just spend money every single day, and every single day you'll start from zero again. You'll never build momentum, and it's kind of a miserable way to go through life. I've done it. So when we put all that together, I mean, it happens very simply. It's a classic marketing funnel. It all feeds in. And this is an EDU marketing funnel. This is how it works. So it comes together. It's classic marketing. There are other things that feed in. So never forget other media that work. Direct mail still works. And this is a digital marketer saying that. Still works. You can get a copy of this. If you want, get a copy. It's not a problem. It's not super secret. It's just... And I will say, shameless plug, I got this from someone else. I had a friend who runs that company. He gave it to me. So, other more talented people. But again, it's just classic marketing. I mean, when you look at Marketing 101, they talk about the funnel from search and research to engagement. Okay? This doesn't change. And again, that comment earlier about digital marketing. It's not that complicated. So now we've talked about, hey, here's what you should do. Here are the 5 elements. Here how they funnel together. The classic question that comes up is, well, that's great. That sounds good. But how do I do that? I've got to move that. How do I do that? How do I actually do that? That's kind of nice theory. But in my world, how do I do that? So there's classically 2 models I see. There's one is you have someone, you hire a member of staff, that's their job. That's the subject matter expert. They live it, they breathe it, they do it. The other model is you go and hire an agency. Okay, you do it for me. And they're experts, this is what they do for a living, and you want them to represent your institution and program. Neither are ideal. And this is why I feel that's important. If you have someone in your department who does it, you're siloing the knowledge base. You have one single person who you're dependent upon for everything. And we're all humans. People need vacations. They need time off. So if you silo it with one person, there's a danger. If you give it to an agency and just go, please do this for me, you lose, not always, but you can lose that authenticity. Remember we talked about your brand. This is the living, breathing programs that you promote. It's very hard for someone outside of your organization to really understand that, live it, breathe it, and communicate it. So always the best approaches I've seen is that hybrid model, where you have someone internally, maybe 2 or 3 people, who are responsible for managing this. And then you bring in an outside brain who's expert in delivery and actually making it happen. And they work together. So you have outside knowledge, outside expertise that will teach you things you don't know. And you can actually learn from them and download information and spread that through your institution. But also by having more than one person and keeping it very, very simple. Cost per student enrollment. You'll allow your marketing programs and what you're trying to do to become digestible. Everyone gets it. It's not that hard. So you allow more people to come enthused. You'll have more contributors. And you'll have more help, which we all like, getting more help. So if you keep it simple, more people understand it, then more people can contribute. So if you have a couple of people responsible working with that outside brain, be an agency or an expert like Greg to make it happen, you'll get the best of both worlds. It also gives you a failover. If something happens, if someone leaves, if someone moves on to new opportunities on either side of that fence, you have redundancy. So it's a very safe way of giving you continuity, good way of managing costs, and getting a more enthused, more deliverable long-term program. And that's it. And you say I went back to one of Greg's slides because they're much more exciting than mine. And maybe just to give you an answer on, is it Andrea? On attribution. It all comes down to, in my mind, attribution is a buzzword. I do a lot of attribution modeling, but people sort of put everything, oh, I've got to do attribution. First touch, last touch, most recent touch, all that joy. The first thing you've got to start to understand your problem is data mapping. So you've got to start, how does my database exist? Do I manage it by the student name? Do I manage it by the person, by the inquirer, by the parent? Do I manage it by the address? Because I might have a separated family with 2 parents at different addresses, 1 student with a different address. So you can end up with a complex database. In my experience, the best way of doing it is having your core key run off the household level, because it will give you the highest level of accuracy in most cases, because then you can have multiple adults inquiring. And if anyone here does multicultural marketing, you know in certain sectors like Hispanic, Latino, you will have multi-generational family units, which make it really complicated. But again, if you map it to the address versus the name, or versus the inquirer, or versus the applicant, it eliminates, I would say, easily 80 to 85% of that. Below the household address, next field you use student name. And the way to get around all the different naming and different addresses is give both of them a key. So don't try and map 123 Main Street any town, because someone might put ST dot, someone else might put street. You can normalize those. You can use as a really good Experian product and a really good SaaS product that will standardize those. But I would do a household key followed by a student key. So you'll have one-to-one there. And then you can roll up all the parents and all the people who are phoning as many people to one record. And that will show you where your true inquiry is coming from. And then you don't need to go and start building big complex attribution models. It will just give you a simple data flow. And then if that's not enough, you can then go and start to look at further things. But that should usually limit about 70 or 80% of your missed. Hope that helps.
Well, thank you. How about a warm hand for presenters today? And we've got some time, so any other questions related to measuring digital campaigns, effectiveness, or does anybody else want to kind of chime in on the answer? I think in a lot of ways, that was very thorough, maybe a little bit more slanted towards consumer, effectiveness. So we have a question in the back here.
I think I need the microphone.
Okay.
Greg, what are some creative ways that you can measure branding impressions, as in like content marketing or thought leadership opportunities?
Well, okay, and just tell me if this answers your question, George. So, first of all, anything that's done on any social platform is very easy to measure now. So, different metrics that I like to use when it comes to brand awareness involve things like media mentions, obviously followers, likes, and then, sort of taking all of those leads that you're building through your top funnel and obviously seeing how, sort of how qualified they end up being. Another way to look at it, though, is in sort of like white papers and other content pieces that you send out, you always want to put links in there so that you're driving your customer back to your site or to the place where you can actually measure and see the value in in spending the money on those vehicles. Okay.
Other questions? Okay. All right. Oh, here we go.
Thank goodness. Saved by the bell.
I'm curious if you have any recommendations or experience with what kind of metrics or how to measure metrics when you don't yet have a baseline for something new you're doing, for example.
So yeah, your usual is year on year, month on month, where's my improvement? I would take it back to return on ad spend. But when you start a new channel or a new campaign, be it commercial Twitter or something like that, you have to say, I'm going to sign a budget, maybe $1,000, doesn't have to be a lot, and I'm going to cast it to the wind. And you have to say, I'm going to let it go out there, and I'm going to see what happens, and then I'm going to do my return on ad spend, and that would form your baseline.
Yeah, I mean, also would just say, if it's something brand new, first of all, be patient. This came up in a few sessions. I mean, if it's a new product, a new solution, or a new company, I think, startups, for example, can be rather arrogant in terms of their expectations. And I mean, especially with this K-12 market, it takes time to build an audience. So be patient. I'd also say talk to colleagues about their experiences and, okay, what kind of conversion rates did they get? Or how many leads did they generate from these types of vehicles? I mean, also, if you do a search, you can find pretty good industry standard metrics, so you can use your baseline based on some of those things as well.
Any other questions in the room? All right, well, thanks again. Colin's got a question.
No, just one last thing. If you do want a copy of this or any of the graphics out of it, happy to take and use them. Both of our email addresses are in the guides, so just email us.